You know that moment when you think your 36th birthday is going to be dinner, cake, and maybe some awkward happy birthday singing? Well, mine turned into a live episode of When Husbands Attack the Musical. There I was, Cleo, standing in the Coral Gables Community Center ballroom in Florida. 60 guests scattered around. A 3-tier cake from that overpriced bakery on Miracle Mile. My best friend Ramona by my side. Divorce attorney, crucial detail for later, when Emmett, my darling husband of 8 years, decided to put on his grand performance. It was November 10th, a Tuesday. The kind of perfect South Florida evening where the humidity finally breaks and you can breathe without feeling like you're swimming through air. I should have known something was off when Emmett arrived late, already 3 drinks deep based on the way he was moving. He stood up, right in the middle of my cousin singing an off-key rendition of Happy Birthday, yanked off his wedding ring like it was burning his finger, and threw it at me. Not gently tossed, threw, like a fastball. It bounced off my collarbone and clattered onto the floor. 60 people froze. The singing died mid-note. And then Emmett delivered his Oscar-worthy line. "At least your first fiancé was smart enough to run. I'm just finishing what he started." The silence was deafening. My mother gasped. Someone's wine glass shattered on the floor. My uncle muttered something about young people these days. But Emmett wasn't done. Oh no. He reached into his blazer. Yes, he brought documents to my birthday party and pulled out a manila folder. Divorce papers. Already filled out. All they needed was my signature. He slapped them on the table next to my untouched slice of birthday cake. "Sign these, Cleo. I'm making this easy for you. 8 years of my life wasted on someone who can't even give me a decent life. Your poor grandma from Cleveland left you nothing, just like I knew she would. You're going to end up alone in that shabby little house you're so proud of. At least I'll be free." I stared at those papers. Stared at the man I'd married when I was 28, believing his promises about partnership and forever. 8 years. 8 years of his mother calling me not quite good enough for our Emmett. 8 years of him rolling his eyes when I talked about my teaching job, like educating 5th graders was beneath us. 8 years of him working late 3 nights a week, something I'd pretended not to notice because I'd convinced myself we were happy. Ramona's hand was already on her phone. Recording. Because that's what good friends do. They document your humiliation so you can use it in court later. I saw her finger hit that red record button, and I'll love her forever for her quick thinking. The logical thing would have been to cry, to run out, to cause a scene. But here's the thing about reaching rock bottom at your own birthday party in front of 60 witnesses. Something inside you just clicks. I picked up the folder, whispered, "Excuse me," and walked straight to the bathroom. Everyone probably thought I was going to sob my eyes out, lock myself in a stall, have a breakdown. Instead, I checked my phone. The one I'd left on silent because who wants work calls during their birthday party. 3 messages, all from the same number, all from Herbert Richardson, Esquire, my grandmother Annette's estate attorney. "Mrs. Cleo Hartwell, inventory finalized. Stock holdings evaluated at $18 million. Final transfer in 6 weeks. Per will stipulations. If divorced at time of signature, you inherit solely. If married, spouse entitled to 50%. Please call to confirm." I read it once, twice, 5 times. My grandmother, the poor old lady from Cleveland, who Emmett had mocked at every family gathering, the woman he'd refused to visit in her final months because, what's the point? She has nothing to leave anyone. Owned 40% of a regional supermarket chain. Morrison's Fresh Markets. 23 stores across Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Started by her and my grandfather in 1967. Built from nothing. And Grandma Annette, bless her calculating heart, had written her will with a very specific clause. She'd watched Emmett at Thanksgiving dinners. Seen how he dismissed her stories. How he checked his phone when she spoke. How he'd ask me on the drive home if we really had to keep visiting the old bat. She knew exactly what kind of man he was. That clause was her final gift to me. Divorce protection. If I was single when the estate transferred, I got everything. If I was married, my spouse got half. She'd literally written the will to make sure no gold digger could benefit from her legacy. I splashed cold water on my face, fixed my makeup, walked back into that ballroom holding those divorce papers like they were the winning lottery ticket. Because they were. Emmett's face was priceless. Confusion first. Why was I smiling? Then concern. Why wasn't I crying? I sat down, pulled a pen from my purse, the nice one Ramona had given me last Christmas, and signed every single page, right there, in front of 60 witnesses, with theatrical flourish. There you go, Emmett, just like you said, making it easy for me. I handed the papers to Ramona, who understood everything from one look at my face. Then I picked up my phone, found that voicemail from Herbert Richardson, and put it on speaker. Full volume. For everyone to hear. Mrs. Hartwell, this is Herbert Richardson regarding your grandmother Annette Morrison's estate. The final inventory has been completed. Stock holdings in Morrison's Fresh Markets have been evaluated at $18 million. The final transfer will occur in 6 weeks, per the stipulations in Mrs. Morrison's will. If you are divorced at the time of signature, you will inherit the estate solely. If you remain married, your spouse will be entitled to 50% under Florida marital property law. Please call my office at your earliest convenience to confirm receipt of this message and discuss next steps. The color drained from Emmett's face so fast I thought he might faint. He went through all 5 stages of grief in about 10 seconds. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, pure panic. His eyes darted from me to the papers to Ramona to the 60 witnesses who'd just heard everything. Wait, his voice cracked. Wait, Cleo, I was angry. I didn't mean. He lunged for the papers in Ramona's hands. She stepped back smoothly, holding them above her head like a teacher confiscating a note from a misbehaving student. Too late, Emmett, she said sweetly. Then, raising her voice for everyone to hear, as Mrs. Hartwell's attorney and witness to this signing, these documents will be filed with the courthouse Monday morning at 8 a.m. Emmett actually fell to his knees, in front of 60 people, at my birthday party, begging, Cleo, please, we can tear those up. This was just a moment of anger. 8 years. Think about our 8 years together. I love you. You know I love you. Do I? I picked up my champagne glass, took a sip, and smiled. Because about 3 minutes ago, you told me I was a waste of your life. In front of my family, at my birthday party, with pre-filled divorce papers. But sure, Emmett, tell me more about love. The next 28 days were spectacular. Not in a happily ever after kind of way, but in a watching someone realize they played themselves kind of way. Because Florida requires a minimum 20-day waiting period for uncontested divorces, and our case took exactly 28 days to finalize. 28 glorious days of Emmett spiraling while I planned my future. Day 1, Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, Ramona filed the papers at the Miami-Dade County Courthouse. By 9 a.m., Emmett was blowing up my phone. 37 missed calls before lunch. I blocked his number. He switched to calling from his office line. Blocked that too. Then he started texting from random numbers. Coworkers' phones, his gym buddy's cell, even a burner phone he apparently bought just to harass me. The man was committed. I'll give him that. Day 3. Flowers arrived. Not just any flowers, a massive arrangement from Whole Foods, the kind that screams, I panicked and bought the most expensive thing I could find. The card read, Cleo, I made a terrible mistake. Let's talk. I love you. E. I took a photo, posted it on our neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, Free flowers to good home, slightly contaminated with desperation, and watched them get claimed within 12 minutes by my neighbor Linda, who thought the whole situation was better than reality TV. Day 5. Emmett showed up at my house. My house. The one I'd owned before we married. The little 3-bedroom craftsman in South Miami that he'd always called your starter home, with that condescending tone. He rang the doorbell 17 times. I watched through the Ring camera, eating popcorn, as he paced on my porch like a caged animal. He even tried the standing outside with a boombox move, except instead of a boombox, he had his iPhone playing our song through a Bluetooth speaker. In 2024, the neighbors definitely got a show that night. Day 7. The letters started. Handwritten. Multiple pages. Delivered daily. Each one more pathetic than the last. I was stressed from work. I didn't mean what I said. 8 years means something. We can go to counseling. I'll change. Reading them was like watching someone's dignity leak out through a pen. I kept them all. Not for sentimental reasons. For my attorney. Documentation of harassment is always useful. Day 10. He called my mother. My mother. The woman who'd watched him throw a ring at her daughter in front of 60 people. The woman who'd heard him say I was a waste of his life. He actually thought she'd advocate for him. She listened politely for about 45 seconds, then said, "Emmett, honey, you made your bed. Now you get to sleep in it. Alone. Forever." Then she hung up and called me laughing so hard she could barely breathe. Day 12. I discovered why Emmett had been working late 3 nights a week for the past 2 years. His coworker Bryce, nice guy, terrible gossip, called me accidentally on purpose to let me know that Emmett had been having drinks with Madison, the 26-year-old marketing coordinator at his firm. Not sleeping with her, apparently. Just emotional affair territory. Drinks at that pretentious rooftop bar in Brickell. Long lunches at Wynwood Bistros. The kind of relationship where they'd convinced themselves it wasn't really cheating, because they hadn't physically crossed that line yet. The kicker? Madison had heard about the birthday party disaster. The whole office had. And she'd promptly told Emmett she needed space to reevaluate their connection. Translation. She'd signed up for a fun flirtation with a married man, not a desperate divorcee who'd just fumbled $18 million. Emmett had lost his wife and his almost affair partner in the same week. The schadenfreude was delicious. Day 15. His mother called. Oh, Barbara. Sweet, judgmental Barbara, who'd spent 8 years implying I wasn't quite sophisticated enough for her precious son. The woman who'd forgotten to invite me to her book club 3 times. Who'd always seated me at the kids' table during Thanksgiving even though I was in my 30s. Who'd once told me that teaching was a nice hobby until you have real responsibilities. She wanted to discuss the situation. I almost declined, but curiosity won. We met at a Starbucks in Coconut Grove. Neutral territory. She showed up in her tennis whites, fresh from the country club, and launched straight into her pitch. Cleo, I know Emmett was inappropriate at your party, but don't you think divorce is extreme? 8 years of marriage, thrown away over one bad moment? I sipped my latte and smiled. Barbara, he brought pre-filled divorce papers to my birthday party. He threw his wedding ring at me, in front of 60 witnesses. That's not a bad moment. That's a calculated public humiliation. But surely, and now you're here because you found out about Grandma Annette's money. Her face went red. Bingo. I'm just saying that marriage is work and, let me be clear. I set down my cup. Your son spent 8 years making me feel small, dismissing my career, mocking my family, and the second he thought I was worthless, he humiliated me publicly. But now that he knows I'm worth $18 million, suddenly I'm worth fighting for? Funny how that works. Barbara left without touching her green tea. I stayed and ordered a slice of lemon cake. Small victories. Day 18. I started packing up Emmett's belongings from my house. We'd lived together for 8 years, even though the house was legally mine. Florida law was clear. It was my separate property since I'd owned it before marriage. But his stuff had accumulated like sediment. His golf clubs in the garage, his protein powder collection taking up half my kitchen counter, his terrible abstract art prints on my walls. I packed everything methodically, labeled boxes, made an inventory list. Ramona advised me to do everything by the book. No destroyed belongings, no dramatic gestures, just clean, documented removal of his property. I scheduled a moving truck for day 29, the day after the divorce finalized. Everything ready to be delivered to his new apartment. The 1-bedroom rental in Hialeah he'd had to settle for because, turns out, walking away from a marriage means splitting assets, and his half wasn't as impressive as he'd hoped. Day 21. Emmett tried the grand gesture. He showed up at my school, My fifth graders were at recess, thank God, but he cornered me in the hallway outside my classroom. Looking rough, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, desperate eyes. "Cleo, please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. Emmett, you're trespassing on school property. Leave or I call security." I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. I was angry about work stuff, and I took it out on you, and I know that's not an excuse, but please. 8 years. Doesn't that mean anything? It did, I said quietly, until you decided it didn't. At my birthday party. Remember? I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy. I'll quit my job and we can move somewhere new. Start over. Please, Cleo, I can't lose you. I love you. No, Emmett. You love $18 million. There's a difference. Security escorted him out. My principal, Mrs. Ochoa, gave me the rest of the day off and a knowing look. Apparently, my birthday party disaster had made the rounds in the teacher's lounge. Small towns, even in big cities. Day 28. The divorce was finalized. I signed the final papers in Ramona's office at 10 a.m. Emmett had tried to contest it at the last minute, claiming emotional distress and asking for a delay. The judge took approximately 30 seconds to review Ramona's evidence, including the video of the birthday party scene, and deny his motion. We were officially done. I walked out of that courthouse a free woman, single, 36, soon to be worth $18 million, and ready for whatever came next, because 6 weeks were almost up. Herbert Richardson had scheduled the final estate transfer for 2 weeks from today, and I had plans, big plans, the kind that would make Grandma Annette proud. But first, I had a moving truck to receive tomorrow, Emmett's belongings, officially removed from my life, and a phone call to make, to Madison from Emmett's office. Because if anyone deserved to know the full story of the man who'd wasted 2 years of her time with emotional affairs and empty promises, it was her. Some people call it petty. I call it community service. Day 29 started with watching a moving truck haul Emmett's life out of my house. 23 boxes, 4 pieces of furniture, and 8 years of accumulated nonsense gone by noon. The house felt lighter, bigger, like I could finally breathe. That afternoon, I made the call to Madison. Not from anger, from strategic curiosity. Because women who've been played by the same man deserve to compare notes. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello? Madison? This is Cleo, Emmett's ex-wife. Got a minute?" Silence. Then, "How did you get my number?" LinkedIn is surprisingly informative. Look, I'm not calling to yell at you or create drama. I'm calling because I think we both deserve to know the full story of the man who wasted our time. Another pause. I'm listening. We met at a wine bar in Coral Gables. Neutral territory. She showed up looking younger than 26, nervous, clutching her purse like a shield. We ordered a bottle of Pinot Grigio and started comparing notes. Turns out, Emmett had told her I was emotionally distant and focused only on my boring teaching job, that we'd grown apart years ago and were basically roommates, that he was planning to leave me anyway, but waiting for the right time. Classic Affair Playbook, Chapter 1. He said you two didn't even sleep in the same bedroom anymore, Madison said quietly, swirling her wine. I laughed. We shared a bed until the night of my birthday party. The man is a creative fiction writer. He should consider a career change. She winced. I feel like an idiot. Don't. He's professional-level manipulative. 8 years. And I didn't catch half his lies until everything exploded. I paused. But here's what I need to know. Did he ever mention my grandmother? The one who died last year? He said she was poor, that you kept visiting her out of obligation even though she had nothing to leave you. He complained about wasting weekends in Cleveland when you could have been doing something productive. There it was, confirmation that Emmett genuinely believed Grandma Annette had nothing, which meant his birthday party explosion wasn't some calculated move to divorce me before the money came through. He was just that confidently stupid. But then Madison said something that made my wine glass freeze halfway to my mouth. Actually, about 3 weeks before your birthday, he asked me something weird. He wanted to know if I knew any estate lawyers. Said he was helping a friend navigate inheritance issues, and needed someone who specialized in contesting wills. My blood went cold. Contesting wills? Yeah. He asked really specific questions about Florida probate law, how long estates take to settle, whether spouses automatically have rights to inherited assets. I thought it was strange because he said it was for a friend, but he was weirdly intense about it. I set down my glass carefully. When exactly was this? Mid-March? Like March 15th or 16th? My grandmother had died February 10th. The will reading happened March 1st. I'd been notified I was the sole beneficiary on March 3rd, and by March 15th, Emmett was researching how to contest wills and claim spousal rights to inherited assets, which meant someone had told him about the money. Someone from the will reading, or someone in my family, or someone from the lawyer's office. And instead of being happy for me, instead of celebrating our sudden good fortune, he'd immediately started planning how to maximize his cut. But here's where his plan fell apart. He'd gotten impatient. He'd probably learned the estate would take months to settle. 6 to 9 months is standard in Florida. He'd done the math. If he stayed married to me, acted loving and supportive, he'd get half automatically when the money came through. 18 million split 50-50, 9 million each. But Emmett was never good at the long game. He'd gotten frustrated, probably felt entitled to leave me anyway since he'd already been emotionally checked out with Madison and decided to make a dramatic exit at my birthday party. He'd convinced himself he could have his cake and eat it too. Divorce me publicly, make me feel small, and still somehow claim the money wasn't really marital property because we were separated. Except Florida law doesn't work that way. And his theatrical birthday party divorce filing actually saved me from his original plan. Madison, I said slowly, did he ever mention anything about the timing of when he wanted to file divorce papers? He said he was planning to wait until after the holidays, December or early January. Something about letting things settle first. I didn't understand what he meant. December or January. After the estate settled. After the money transferred in late December. After he could claim his marital 50%. Then he'd file for divorce, take his $9 million, and ride off into the sunset with his young marketing coordinator. But he'd miscalculated at my birthday party, lost his temper, accelerated his own timeline out of spite, and accidentally saved me $18 million. The irony was so beautiful I almost laughed. He played himself, I said. What? Nothing. Just, thank you for meeting me. You should know he's been calling me nonstop trying to reconcile. Not because he loves me, because he finally did the math. Madison's face hardened. He called me last week, said he made a mistake and wanted to figure things out. Let me guess. He didn't mention the $18 million? No. He said you were being vindictive about the divorce, and he just needed time to sort through his feelings. I pulled out my phone and showed her the voicemail from Herbert Richardson. Let her listen to the whole thing. Watched her face go from confused to understanding to disgusted. Oh my God. Yep. So when he calls you again, and he will, you'll know exactly what he's really after. We finished the bottle. Exchanged numbers. She thanked me for the weirdest girls' night ever, and promised to forward any other suspicious conversations she remembered. We parted as unlikely allies in the war against one very stupid man. I drove home thinking about Emmett's original plan. The calculated patience, the fake marriage, the long con. If he'd just kept his mouth shut at my birthday party, stayed married, played the loving husband for 6 more weeks, he'd have $9 million right now. Instead, he had a 1-bedroom apartment in Hialeah, a broken emotional affair, a mother who was probably never speaking to him again, and the knowledge that he'd fumbled the biggest bag of his life. When I got home, I found an email from Herbert Richardson confirming the final estate transfer meeting. 2 weeks from today, 10 a.m., his office in downtown Miami. All paperwork complete, all taxes settled. $18 million in Morrison's fresh market stock, transferring to my name exclusively. I also found a letter from Emmett, slipped under my door. More begging, more promises, more I love you declarations that felt hollow after Madison's revelations. but one line caught my attention. "I know you're going to be inheriting money soon. I'm not asking for any of it. I just want US back. Not asking for any of it." Right. He definitely didn't consult estate lawyers about spousal rights to inheritance. Definitely didn't have a whole plan to wait until after the money transferred to file for divorce. Definitely wasn't trying to manipulate his way back into my life for financial reasons. I took a photo of the letter, sent it to Ramona with the caption, "Evidence of continued contact after final divorce decree. How's that restraining order looking?" She responded immediately, "I'll draft it tomorrow." Then I opened my laptop and started making lists, because in 2 weeks, I'd officially be worth $18 million. And I had plans. Plans that went beyond just securing my own future. Plans that would make Grandma Annette proud. Plans that would show everyone, especially Emmett, exactly what you can accomplish when you're underestimated. First item on the list: call Morrison's Fresh Markets headquarters. Schedule a meeting with the board of directors. Because I wasn't just inheriting money. I was inheriting 40% ownership of a 23-store supermarket chain, and I had ideas about what to do with that power. Second item: research Emmett's employer, that fancy corporate law firm in Brickell where he'd spent 8 years climbing the ladder, where he'd met Madison, where everyone had probably heard about his spectacular birthday party meltdown by now. Third item: draft a very specific email to a very specific person. Someone who could help me turn my inheritance into something meaningful. Someone who understood that revenge is a dish best served with receipts and perfect timing. I looked at my grandmother's photo on the mantel. Annette Morrison, 92 years old when she died, sharp as a tack until the very end. She'd built an empire from nothing, survived my grandfather's death, raised 3 kids, outlasted economic crashes and market downturns and every person who'd ever underestimated her. "I promise I won't waste this," I whispered to her picture. "Not a single dollar. 2 weeks until the transfer. 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks until everyone learned that underestimating Cleo Hartwell was the biggest mistake they'd ever make. Starting with my ex-husband. Day 42 arrived like Christmas morning. December 22nd, to be exact. I wore my best navy suit, the one I'd bought for parent-teacher conferences but never felt confident enough to wear. Today, I felt invincible. Herbert Richardson's office occupied the 23rd floor of a glass tower in downtown Miami. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay, the kind of view that costs money just to look at. His assistant offered me coffee in actual china cups, not the disposable kind. I was moving up in the world. The paperwork took 40 minutes. Signatures, initials, more signatures. Herbert walked me through every page, explaining tax implications, dividend schedules, voting rights as a 40% shareholder. When we finished, he shook my hand and said, "Your grandmother would be proud. She always said you were tougher than people gave you credit for." She was right. I walked out of that office $18 million richer. Well, technically, richer by $18 million in stock holdings with a current market value that fluctuated, but who's counting? The Morrison's Fresh Markets shares were officially mine. Dividends alone would net me about $600,000 annually. Not bad for a 5th-grade teacher from South Miami, but the money wasn't the victory. The victory was what came next. I'd spent the past 2 weeks doing homework. Morrison's Fresh Markets had been struggling lately. Nothing catastrophic. Just the slow decline of a regional chain facing competition from Publix and Walmart. The board of directors consisted of 5 people, 3 of my grandmother's old business partners, now in their 70s, and 2 younger executives brought in 5 years ago to modernize operations. I'd scheduled a board meeting for the next morning, 10 a.m. Mandatory attendance. As a 40% shareholder, I had that power. They'd probably expected me to show up, thank them politely, and rubber stamp whatever decisions they'd been making. Surprise. I flew to Cleveland that evening, caught the 6 p.m. direct flight, landed at 8:30, checked into a hotel near the airport, reviewed my presentation one more time, barely slept from excitement and nerves. The next morning, December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve, I arrived at Morrison's headquarters at 9:45. The boardroom was exactly what you'd expect. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, oil paintings of my grandparents on the wall. 5 confused executives waiting for the teacher-granddaughter to make her appearance. "Gentlemen," I said, setting down my briefcase. "Thank you for accommodating my schedule during the holiday week. I'll be brief so you can get back to your families." I pulled out my presentation. 40 slides, market analysis, competitor research, demographic studies, store performance metrics, everything I'd compiled over 2 weeks of obsessive research. "Morrison's is dying," I said flatly. "Not dead yet, but declining. Revenue down 8% over 3 years. Customer base aging out. Younger demographics shopping elsewhere. Your modernization strategy failed because you tried to compete with Walmart on price instead of Publix on experience." The 2 younger executives shifted uncomfortably. The 3 older men just stared. "I have a proposal. We pivot. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. Focus on what made Morrison successful originally: community connection, local products, personalized service. We convert 6 underperforming stores into hybrid grocery community centers. Add cooking classes, local vendor markets, community event spaces. Make Morrison's the neighborhood hub, not just the place you buy milk." I clicked through financial projections, case studies from similar successful pivots, architectural mock-ups. "This will require 18 months and approximately $4 million in renovations. I'm funding it personally after liquidating a portion of my shares. In exchange, I want operational control of the 6 pilot stores and a seat on this board." Silence. Then, Harold, one of my grandmother's original partners, started laughing. "Annette said you'd do this. She told me 3 years ago, if anything happens to me, Cleo's going to walk in and shake everything up. We didn't believe her. Believe her now? Young lady, you've got yourself a deal." We voted, 5-0. I was officially on the board of directors of Morrison's Fresh Markets, and the pilot program was greenlit. I flew back to Miami that afternoon, exhausted but triumphant. The day before Christmas Eve felt surreal. I kept having to remind myself this was real life, not some fantasy. Step 1 complete, but I had more moves to make. Step 2 involved a phone call to Emmett's firm. Not to Emmett. God, no. To Bryce, his co-worker, the one who'd tipped me off about Madison. Turns out Bryce had his own reasons for disliking Emmett. Something about stolen client credit and a promotion that should have been Bryce's. "Cleo, what can I do for you?" Bryce sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. "Hypothetically, if someone at your firm had been using company resources to research personal legal matters, say, estate law and will contestation, during work hours, would that violate any policies?" Long pause. "Hypothetically, that would be a serious ethics violation, especially if they billed those hours to clients. And if someone had documentation of timestamps and specific conversations where this person asked a coworker to research inheritance law during billable hours, that person would be a hero, hypothetically." I emailed him everything Madison had sent me. Screenshots of Emmett's questions about estate law, dates and times, forwarded emails where Emmett had asked her to look something up quickly during work hours. Bryce assured me he'd pass it along to the right people in the firm's ethics department, along with his own observations about timing and billing irregularities. 3 days later, I got a text from Madison. "Emmett just got suspended pending ethics investigation. Partners are furious." Step 3 was simpler. I hired a real estate agent and put my Craftsman house on the market. Not because I didn't love it, I did, but because I needed something new. Something that was entirely mine, untouched by memories of Emmett. I found a gorgeous Mediterranean-style home in Pinecrest, 4 bedrooms, pool, office space, asking price $1.2 million. I made an offer. Full asking price. Closing in 6 weeks. Step 4 was the most satisfying. Remember that restraining order Ramona was drafting? We filed it. Emmett had violated the no-contact terms of our divorce decree 47 times. Calls, texts, letters, showing up at my house, showing up at my school. Florida courts don't play around with that. The hearing was scheduled for the first Thursday of the new year. Emmett showed up with a public defender because apparently his fancy law firm suspended him without pay during the ethics investigation. He looked terrible. unshaven, rumpled suit, desperate eyes. The judge reviewed our evidence, call logs, security footage, the birthday party video, Madison's testimony about the estate law research conversations, everything. Took her about 15 minutes. Mr. Hartwell, you're prohibited from contacting Ms. Morrison directly or indirectly for a period of 5 years. This includes phone, email, text, social media, third-party intermediaries, and physical proximity within 500 feet. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Do you understand? Emmett's voice cracked. Your Honor, I just want to apologize to her. I made terrible mistakes and— Save it for therapy, Mr. Hartwell. Order granted. We're done here. As we left the courthouse, I saw Barbara in the parking lot, waiting by her Mercedes, tennis whites as always. She didn't approach, just stood there, watching. I caught her eye, gave her a small nod. She nodded back. We understood each other now. Her son had destroyed his own life, and there was nothing she could do about it. That evening, Ramona and I celebrated at the same wine bar where I'd met Madison. We ordered the expensive bottle this time, the one that cost $60 and tastes like victory. To Grandma Annette, Ramona raised her glass, the woman who knew exactly what she was doing. To Grandma Annette, I echoed, and to men who play themselves. My phone buzzed. Email from Harold at Morrison's. Board approved your community center concept. 6 stores greenlit. Cleveland suburb locations identified. Architects ready. Construction starts February. Let's build something special. I smiled. $18 million, a seat on the board, a new house in Pinecrest closing soon, an ex-husband legally required to stay 500 feet away, and a purpose that would make my grandmother proud. Not bad for a 5th-grade teacher from South Miami. 13 months later, I'm standing at the grand opening celebration of Morrison's Community Market in Shaker Heights, a Cleveland suburb. The space is beautiful. Gleaming produce section on one side, commercial kitchen for cooking classes on the other, community event space in the back, local vendors selling homemade jam and artisan bread, kids' story time happening in the reading nook we built near the cafe. This is the first official grand opening with press and fanfare, though 4 of our 6 pilot stores had already opened quietly throughout the spring and summer. Those 4 are exceeding projections, profitable within their first year of operation, which is almost unheard of in retail. The community center concept is working. People want connection, not just cheap groceries. Harold cuts the ribbon. I give a speech about honoring my grandmother's legacy while building something new. The local news covers it. The mayor shows up for photos. It feels surreal and exactly right all at once. My life now looks nothing like it did 13 months ago. The Pinecrest house is everything I wanted. Bright, spacious. Mine. I turned one bedroom into an office for Morrison's work, another into a library because I can finally buy all the books I want without someone complaining about wasting money. The pool gets used weekly. I'm learning to swim laps, which at 37 feels both ridiculous and liberating. Teaching still grounds me. My 5th graders don't care that I'm a millionaire board member. They care that I brought the class hamster back after summer break, and that I still give out candy for correct answers. Mrs. Ochoa keeps threatening to retire and make me principal. I keep threatening to hire her as Morrison's educational program director. We're both half serious. Ramona got promoted to partner at her firm. We still do wine nights, though now we alternate between the Coral Gables spot and a new rooftop bar in Brickell. Yes, the same one where Emmett used to meet Madison. Reclaiming spaces is therapeutic. Madison got a new job at a tech startup in Fort Lauderdale. Better pay, better title, better everything. She sent me a thank you card last month for showing me what self-respect looks like. We're not close friends, but we text occasionally. Survivors of the same disaster recognize each other. We're planning 12 more store conversions next year. Business journals are writing articles. I've been interviewed 3 times about the Morrisons' Renaissance. The board meetings still intimidate me sometimes. I'm the youngest person by 20 years and the only woman, but I speak up anyway. Turns out, being underestimated your whole life teaches you to trust your own voice. Barbara sent me a Christmas card this past December. Just signed, B. No message. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. Some relationships exist in complicated spaces. My mother keeps trying to set me up on dates. I keep reminding her I'm perfectly happy alone. She doesn't believe me, but it's true. After 8 years of being made to feel small, I'm enjoying being exactly myself. Large, loud, ambitious, and completely unbothered by anyone else's opinion. As for Emmett, I don't know, honestly. The restraining order means I get no information unless he violates it, which he hasn't. I heard through the teaching gossip network that his ethics suspension ended after 4 months, but he didn't return to the firm. Someone said he moved to Atlanta. Someone else said Tampa. I don't care enough to verify. What I do know is this. His plan was to wait until after the money transferred, take his 50%, and leave. He'd researched it, calculated it, probably dreamed about his $9 million and his young girlfriend and his fresh start. But he couldn't wait. Couldn't resist the dramatic exit. Had to humiliate me publicly. Had to throw that ring. Had to prove he was walking away because he wanted to. Not because circumstances demanded it. Men who need to prove they're in control usually prove the opposite. Sometimes I think about that moment at my birthday party. Him throwing the papers, me signing them, the voicemail playing on speaker, the looks on everyone's faces, the perfect timing of it all. If Grandma Annette had orchestrated it from beyond, she couldn't have scripted it better. She knew. She absolutely knew. That's why she put the divorce clause in her will. Not because she thought I'd initiate divorce, but because she knew exactly what kind of man Emmett was. She knew he'd show his true colors eventually, and she made sure that when he did, I'd be protected. That's love. Not the romantic kind that gets written about in movies. The practical kind that plans ahead, that protects, that builds safety nets for the people who matter. Grandma Annette loved me enough to look past my wedding day smiles and see the truth. I'd married someone small. Someone who would only love me as long as I stayed smaller than him. Her gift wasn't the money. It was permission to be big. I use that permission every day now. At board meetings where I'm the youngest person by 20 years and the only woman speaking up anyway. At Morrison's stores, talking to employees and customers, learning what they need. In my classroom, telling my students they can be anything, and meaning it, because I finally believe it about myself. Last week, one of my students asked what I did before I became a teacher. I told her I've always been a teacher, but I also help run my grandmother's grocery stores now. She thought about it, then asked, "Can girls do both things?" "Girls can do anything," I told her. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if they try, fire them." She's 10. She laughed. But she'll remember. That's the real revenge, I think. Not the money or the board seat or even watching Emmett's life crumble. It's becoming the person he never thought I could be. It's proving that his opinion of me was never the truth, just his limited imagination. I'm 37 now, single, financially secure, building something meaningful, sleeping soundly in my own bed in my own house with my own choices. Some people might call this a fresh start. I call it the life I was always supposed to have. I just had to shed some dead weight to get here. Turns out the best revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. Building something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably yours that the people who underestimated you can't help but watch from a distance, realizing too late what they lost. Emmett thought he was finishing what my first fiancé started. But what he actually did was set me free to become exactly who Grandma Annette always knew I'd be. And honestly, I should send him a thank you card for that.